Howdy, folks. If you don't know a lot about like how we got to where we're at and what's going on in Washington right now, I've been following politics since I was a kid. I'm 62. I'm going to try and give you a nutshell version of what I know went on. Hang with me. It's kind of long and odd, but it'll all make sense at the end, and you'll see why. Just please bear with me and learn a little bit of something along the way. Way back in 1927, there was this guy named Fred Koch. Yeah, the Koch brothers, that was their dad. Anyway, he figured out this, like, I guess, precursor to fracking, a way that smaller oil companies could compete with bigger ones. He went over to Europe. He made a lot of money in the Soviet Union. And then he strolled on over to Nazi Germany. And he helped open the largest refinery in the Third Reich, worked with Hitler, made all of his money, came back over here in 1940, and founded this thing called the Wood River Oil and Refining Company, which would eventually become Koch Industries. Him and his brother, largest private-owned company in America, owned by David and Charles Koch and their family. And since it was private, they didn't have to release the books. Nobody knew what was really going on. At one point in time, one year, they were estimated to be making about $100 billion each year. But they could very well be the richest people in America. We would never know because they don't got to release nothing. But back then, they got the money going and got the company, inherited the company, Koch Industries. They got into politics. David Koch was a libertarian. And then in 1980, he ran with this guy named Ed Clark against Reagan. Here, let me see if I can flip around. So now this is the button from 1980. It's the Libertarian Party. It was Ed Clark and David Koch for BP. Reagan smeared him, wiped him out, just wiped the face of the earth with him. This is what they look like there. That was from the night that they lost Major League. That's David Koch there. That's Ed Clark there. There's not a picture of Charles Koch in here. But keep going and pay attention to what I told you about these two guys here, because they later pop up here when this whole movement pops up, coming up on in 2010, the Tea Party movement. So you'll remember all that stuff there. So let me flip back over. And so between the 1980 election and 2010, when the Tea Party flared up, David Koch had decided that, and his brother, he's a sore loser. He lost by a lot. He decided that from the numbers he saw, he's smart enough to know that the Libertarian Party was never going to be competitive with the Republicans or the Democrats. He thought they had it in the bag, and it did really badly. So he set out to take over the Republican Party from within. If you want to know what happened to the Fairness Doctrine, if you want to know what happened to why Reagan let in illegals, you got to create a problem to solve a problem, right? So Reagan gave 25 amnesty to thousands of people and millions. That's all Koch back stuff, Koch brother back stuff. That's David Koch being the sore loser and slowly infiltrating the Republican Party with his money. He had billions to burn. They're cheap. It's easy to buy them. He didn't have to get blackmail stuff on them. He just bought them. Along this time, funded the Cato Institute from the back door, started the Heritage Foundation. They call it the Kochtopus because it's so many thinking tanks. Well, the money always comes from the Koch brothers, but it's dispersed in the hundreds. That's their echo chamber. That's all those people you see line up on Fox that all say the same thing. They're all backed by the Koch brothers at one point. And so follow that into 2010, when you see the rise of the Tea Party. And the things they're saying that George Soros is doing on No Kings weekend, funding the rallies and funding the signs and funding. No one paid attention when the Tea Party rallies. They would show up and there'd be $1 million stage set up for everybody to speak on, and all the signs being handed out were already printed. That was all Koch brothers AstroTurf money. There's a bunch of good documentaries on this. Several. Here, I'll show you 3 in a row that you should really just check out, and then from that fall down another rabbit hole. But here, I'll flip the camera back around. Now, this was not specifically about the Koch brothers, but it's a good one to start with. It's done by the son of the Johnson & Johnson family. And it was in 2003, and it shows you what goes on. It's got Warren Buffett in here. It's got interviews with a bunch of billionaires. If you've never seen the lifestyles of the rich and famous, you just don't understand it. This documentary takes you in and lets you see a little bit about what goes on behind closed doors, and I would highly recommend it to start out. But then let's get to the meat of the matter, the Koch brothers. There's this one here called The Billionaire's Tea Party. It's on Netflix. It was. If not, it's on YouTube. That's a great one to watch, and that's a good one to start. This was a major theater release called Citizen Koch. I cried in the theater the night I saw it, but That's another one to watch, and it'll get you up to speed real fast of what these people are all about and what their money's all about, because that is the Heritage Foundation. That is who sponsored the Tea Party, that later became the MAGA Trump movement, that became Project 2025. So Project 2025, Heritage Foundation. That David Koch died, but Charles Koch kept the money flowing to the Heritage Foundation. That's who funds all these other foundations. But the Heritage Foundation is the one who backed Project 2025 and has got us to where we're at. Project 2025 wanted to ban the Department of Energy, Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration. They want to get rid of all this stuff. It's all in Project 25. Just go look who they're putting in charge of stuff. But the FCC, the FTC, the National Relations Board, some of these things are already getting rid of. They put Kash Patel in charge of the FBI. That's in there to get rid of the CIA, Federal Reserve, Social Security. They want to do away with welfare, public schools, taxation. The only thing that's really not done away with, and you've seen the acceleration of ICE, right, is the military. That's not on the list. But here's the funnier thing. Let me explain why I started talking about 1980 and David Koch, because I was just talking about Project 2025, right? Let me show you something. I wasn't talking about Project 2025 just then. This is the 1980 Libertarian Party platform from when David Koch got his butt smeared by Reagan and Ed Clark in 1980. To be abolished. This is what they ran on. Department of Energy, Environmental Protection Agency, FDA, OSHA, FCC, FTC, NLRB, FBI, CIA, Federal Reserve, Social Security, welfare, public schools, taxation. No military, right? Republicans, or not Republicans, well, they are now. Libertarians have taken over the Republican Party. Libertarians play the long game. They're even worse than Republicans. And when the two are combined, you get Nazis in the White House where we're at right now. But that's Project 2025. This was, you can Google, go to nuts. I want people to fall down this rabbit hole. I want people to know that Nazi money from the oil refinery in the Third Reich funded Fred Koch, who brought that money back over here and started a company that ended up putting Nazis back in the White House. That's where this money came from. They're using against us now. That's why we have Nazis in the White House. But Project 2025, is this the original libertarian platform that David Koch and Ed Clark ran on in 1980? They just rehashed it. They've been playing the long game for 45 years to get this enacted and using the Koch billions to do it. Nazi money at the root, 100 years later, has put a Nazi in the White House. We're off by a couple of years, but you get the gist. Tax these people. Put them out of business, because that's what's ruined our country. But Project 2025, Google 1980 Libertarian Party platform, compare the two. See if they aren't the same. And then you realize who's been doing this to us, who decimated the education system. That was the Koch brothers. They're like the two Trading Places guys from the movie with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. They're like the two old men. David Koch used to fund Nova on PBS, while he also funds the creationist movement, which is directly in opposition to them. Like, why do you fund both sides of the argument? Unless you just want to keep people arguing, just like they did in Rome with like the patricians. Patricians kept everybody arguing and bread and circuses are distracted, and they stole them blind, which is what the billionaires are doing to America right now. But here, one more time, go look up Project 2025. I haven't put this in here anywhere. And then look up 1980 Party Platform. I'll just scan it one more time, and then I'll be out of here. But thanks for watching. Give me likes or shares. Buy my album in the comments. That's a pretty good album. I make some money. Pay more. I get all the extra you pay over. Or send me some stars. Give me likes. Give me follows. I make money. The page is monetized. So you don't actually have to send me any money. Just share some articles. Invite some friends. Give me some follows. All that kind of stuff. Yeah, but pay attention. Koch brothers, Republicans, Libertarians. There's a reason why I don't care for Libertarians. I never ask where the money comes from that supports that party. It's all Koch brothers money at the top, and they fund 1 million organizations with it to make it look like it's all these people, when it's not. It's a couple of loud people at the top controlling a lot of idiots at the bottom. But Project 25, 2025 has been, and it works since before 1980, because they lost with it in 1980. They had to have it in before then. So about, I think 50 years, 60, 70 years, they've been trying to pull this one off, and they finally got it done once they got all the regulations lifted that they wanted, and they bought our Congress. And then Putin and them come in with some help with Corporate and Mossad. Yeah, we're cooked. Yeah, we're going to have to eat 4 or 5 of them. That's all that's going to have to happen. But yeah, watch this one more time and I'll go away. Thanks. Send me something. Yeah, Google this 1980 Libertarian Party platform, bring it up, and then go split screen and bring up Project 2025 key points, and see if they don't line up. I'm sure there's an outline of Project 2025 out there that'll be outlined like that, and I guarantee it's going to match up. So you guys all have to get it out of your heads that they're trying to fix anything. That's why they're saying the government's going to be shut down until November. They're trying to collapse the government. They're trying to break the whole system. They're trying to get rid of everything so they can rebuild it the way they want, which is a corporate theocracy with people like Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance and all these fucking billionaires running our country. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. I'll try and do more, but politics has been my hobby forever.